It's the Batman Superman World's Finest Annual from 2025 from DC Comics. And in this issue, Gorilla Grodd destroys the past to create a future where he is ruler of the world. Does it work? Let's find out in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. You know, I've read Batman Superman World's Finest 2025 Annual, and it really does act like the big plan has been revealed. Gorilla Grodd has now come to the past from the future to recreate the world in his own image, as it were. Now, does it work out? Well, getting the classic Legion of Doom lineup back together is a lot of fun. It's really great nostalgia bait. But at the end of the day, it all relies on the plan, and the plan is not particularly smart. Let's break down the pros and cons, starting with what's great about this issue. In a positive way, this annual is nostalgia bait. Now, some people are like, you're always leaning on member berries and trying to hook people with the old-fashioned way of doing things. In this case, it kind of works. You get the classic Legion of Doom lineup together to execute a master plan that will put them back on top for all time, literally. Plus, Christopher Cantwell, who is the main writer, he does get some plotting assist from Mark Waid, does a fine job capturing the voices, the inflated egos, and the hubris of each Legion member through their dialogue and some of their actions. So there's a lot of characters to cover, but generally speaking, the team is put together well. They feel authentic to the way you would expect characters to talk and act like Bizarro and Cheetah. But overall, it's member berry, nostalgia bait type of storytelling, but it kind of works. So what didn't work about Batman Superman World's Finest Annual 2025? The heart of the issue relies on the strength and cleverness of Grodd's plan, which isn't presented as particularly strong or clever. Grodd believes he can win by taking the present Legion to the future, defeating the Justice League, and taking over the Watchtower to rule over humanity from space. If the Legion today can barely function as a team, and it already has a lot of its hands full in the individual fights that they take on, with the current Justice League, how is the Legion supposed to overcome an older, wiser, and more technologically advanced Justice League of the future? And here's what I mean by that. Let's dig into it a little bit. You have Christopher Cantwell, who is the main writer. He's getting some plot assistance from Mark Waid, who is the writer on the ongoing series. They appear to be angling for an approach that says the Legion of today, in the prime of their strength and power and youth and however you want to put it, is somehow superior to the Justice League. Think about that. How does that work? If you've got this team of criminals who are all bickering with each other, wouldn't they be less prepared to act as a well-oiled machine? Wouldn't the historical knowledge and advanced technology of the future Justice League be more capable of stopping the Legion of the past? That's like attacking a modern Russia with the best soldiers who fought in Vietnam. They're from two completely different eras, and one is definitely got a leg up in terms of capability, capacity, knowledge, and technology. A soldier with an M16 is not going to do a lot of good against a Russian operative with remote drone strikes. It just doesn't work that way, and that somehow gives Gorilla Grodd a leg up with this new team. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Let's switch gears for a second and talk about the art. So we have Dan McDade, who is doing the art duties on this issue. At least for the main story, there's a different artist for the backup. Admittedly, McDade has a tall order trying to match Dan Mora's razor sharp power from the pages of the World's Finest ongoing series. But he holds his own. I think it's pretty decent. You get John Cleese doing colors, and they pop. They're very vibrant, very colorful in a good way. McDade's action is energetic, a little rough, a little blurry in some spots, but it's okay. And the net visual appearance is solid. So is it up to Dan Mora's standards? Not quite, but it's pretty close, and it's good enough for what we're trying to do here. Let's do a quick recap, because you might be wondering, can I read this issue in isolation, or do I need to be reading the ongoing series? Ideally, you want to be reading the ongoing series, although it feels pretty self-contained. In the World's Finest story that we've got running so far, we learned that Gorilla Grodd from the future transferred his mind to the present to occupy his younger body. It was Grodd who manipulated Airwave into betraying the Justice League, and it was Grodd who created the mysterious group known as Inferno that was first mentioned in Justice League Unlimited #1. In reality, Inferno is the reassembled Legion of Doom, led by Grodd with the Future Brain. And that brings us to the current issue. So we have Batman Superman World's Finest Annual 2025. We find Grodd, who lays out his master plan, but he has to convince the Legion of Doom it will work first. Grodd explains that the assembly of villains, everybody from Lex Luthor to Captain Cold and Cheetah and Bizarro and everyone in between, is defeated in the future by the Justice League, permanently. They have no chance of ever winning. Grodd will send the Legion of Doom on a three-pronged attack to steal various time-related tech throughout the world. They will then transport all of themselves to the future when they're at the peak of their strength and take over the Watchtower. Let's start with the first team. We have Bizarro and Lex Luthor. They are tasked with going to Central City to create a tachyon pulse using the Flash's cosmic treadmill from the Flash Museum. The second team is Scarecrow and Joker, who head to the laboratory of one Dr. Nichols to steal his reserve of tachyon energy particles. When Batman and Robin arrive to interrupt what Scarecrow and Joker are doing, Robin is zapped by a tachyon gun during the escape and he completely disappears. The third team, Sinestro, Black Manta, and Cheetah, attack the Atom in his lab to steal his time pool. Unfortunately, none of the strike teams are blindly obedient to Grodd's instructions, leading to some shenanigans and hijinks during the thefts, especially when members of the JL show up. Fortunately for Grodd, however, the teams eventually succeed. A bit clumsy, but they get it done. What the Legion of Doom doesn't know is that Grodd has secretly made a deal with Pythoness to weave her magic spell to make the trip possible. Why would she go along with this? Well, Grodd explains that she dies in a few years, so a trip to the future circumvents her pending demise. In exchange, Cheetah gets left behind to take the fall for all the thefts. The adventure ends when the Legion of Doom arrives in the future, but they're not the only ones who made the trip. There is a backup. We usually don't talk about the backups, but in this case it's an oversized issue with an elevated cover price. The backup is the reason for that, so we might as well mention it. We have writer Morgan Hampton with artist Clayton Henry, who gives readers sort of a montage, intro, extended prelude type of short story explaining how John Stewart eventually becomes a Green Lantern. The story starts from his younger years as a boy with his sister Ellie. He eventually becomes a soldier and then eventually, yes, a Green Lantern thanks to some encouragement from Hal Jordan. If you're familiar with John Stewart, there's nothing to see here, and its only value is just giving you a little bit of insight into the man behind the ring. Final thoughts, what do we think about Batman Superman World's Finest Annual 2025? It unveils the secret plan of Gorilla Grodd to assemble the Legion of Doom and take over the world. Well, what else is new? Christopher Cantwell and Mark Waid's script is packed with nostalgic fun, and Dan McDade's art style is super solid. That said, Grodd's plan, which is the central idea of the entire issue, doesn't sound smart or particularly effective. So you'll be left with a resounding what? Huh? Why? I don't know. Therefore, Batman Superman World's Finest Annual 2025 from DC Comics earns a 7 out of 10. Generally speaking, I like the nostalgia factor, but the plan needed to be smarter for what it was, especially from a brainiac like Gorilla Grodd, no pun intended. But what do you think? Did you read this issue? Did you enjoy this issue? Did you think Grodd's plan is smarter than I'm giving it credit for? Let me know down in the comments. So, thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned through the outro for more reviews just like this one.